Breaking news, we got the new AP Top 25, and Deion's Buffs are in it at number 22 after Colorado went into TCU, last year's college football playoff participant, the runner-up, and beat the Horned Frogs in their home stadium. Shedeur Sanders, incredible. The quarterback, Travis Hunter, playing close to 130 snaps on both sides of the ball, a pick, and over 100 yards receiving, and Deion's got the Buffs in the top 25. Let's look at the top 10. There are some shakeups, not any movement among the top two, but Florida State is up to number 4 after knocking off LSU. The Tigers fall out of the top 10. Ohio State drops a couple after their 23-3 win over Indiana. Tennessee and Notre Dame new to the top 10 as well. All right, Chris Hassel joined by Brady Quinn as we dissect the new AP Top 25 poll heading into Week 2. Let's start with Deion's Buffaloes. Honestly, I thought they'd be a little bit higher, maybe top 20. What do you think, Colorado at 22?
I think there's still some skepticism about whether or not this team will be able to do what Deion Sanders has claimed that they will do. And that's not only just win, but dominate in year one. Look, I was there in Fort Worth for the big win as a 20.5-point underdog versus TCU, a team that was just in the national championship a year ago. It was incredible to see the way they schematically went out and executed their game plan and really had TCU their back against the wall the entire time. Credit the coaching staff there, in particular their offensive coordinator, Sean Lewis, did a tremendous job with Shedeur Sanders, their quarterback, helping him throw for over 500 yards in this game, spreading the football around and getting the football to a guy like that, Travis Hunter. Now, this is a clip from him playing defense, but Chris, as you noted, Travis Hunter doing something that we have never seen before in college football to this magnitude. A two-way player who literally played almost the entire game on offense and defense, making huge play after huge play for the Colorado Buffaloes. And honestly, he left a little bit out there. Could have even had a bigger game. So Shedeur Sanders, a quarterback, Travis Hunter as a two-way player, wide receiver, and cornerback, give this Colorado Buffaloes team, along with the rest of their talent, a shot in any game that they play. Now, will they continue to climb? I think they will as they move through their schedule, especially once they get to the meat of that Oregon-USC matchup here coming up in a few weeks. They'll be tested this week versus Nebraska and then Colorado State after that. I think they're going to hit the 3-0. They're going to keep climbing amongst this top 25, maybe into the top 15.
Wild for a team that had a win total preseason of just 3.5 this season. The team they beat, TCU, falls out. Clemson lost last night 28-7 to Duke. They almost fall out, all the way down at number 25. Brady, how big of a concern is what's going on at Clemson with the offense, the lack of embracing the transfer portal, and the sign of the times in college football right now?
It's a big-time concern if you're Clemson. And look, this is not to throw shade at Duke. Look, Duke and Mike Elko, their head coach, have really brought this program along to be competitive, to win games like this versus Clemson. But it's also a byproduct of what I think Dabo Swinney has taken a hard stance and approach on, not wanting to invest and buy into the transfer portal, not wanting to feed into NIL quite as much. And when you watch that game last night, outside of Will Shipley, they were devoid of playmakers on the outside, something that we actually have seen for quite a few years now, not having those big explosive playmakers, not having the type of offense that you really see that we saw earlier in Dabo Swinney's career when they were having much more success. You go back the past 3 years, they've lost 3 games twice now. The 5 years before that only happened once. They're 1-2 in bowl games. They're 4-1 back during that stretch, that period, averaging almost 14 wins per year and a national championship. Now they're averaging under 10. I mean, it's a dramatic turnaround and maybe a slow decline now as we're looking at Clemson if they don't want to adapt with college football. But again, as much as it's about Clemson, give credit to Duke, too, who now has leapfrogged Clemson into that top 25.
Yeah, Duke number 21. For Clemson, they've got Charleston Southern and then FAU. So FCS group of 5 before they have to take on Florida State, a team that vaults up to number 4 after that win over LSU.
And you can make the case that they really should be number 1. They have the best win of anyone so far this college football season, and they look dominant there in the second half. Now, some of it might have been LSU's own doing and taking basically your own player out of the game when you look at Harold Perkins and how good he is as an edge rusher, and instead you play him as an off-the-ball linebacker who's dropping back into coverage or spying Jordan Travis. No, you do exactly what Florida State did with Jared Verse. You let him go after the opposing quarterback. So some huge mistakes and flaws by the LSU coaching staff, but give credit to Florida State. They are a tough mismatch for anyone. Jordan Travis is a legit dual threat. He's improved with his arm, and now he's got these big body targets to throw to. We saw a bunch of plays from Keon Coleman, their Michigan State transfer, Johnny Wilson as well with that 6'7" frame, and then Jaheim Bell at tight end. Not as big as those two, at least not as tall, but very versatile. He can run it. He can obviously be effective too out of the backfield at tight end for them. So Florida State's got a lot going for them, and right now as it looks, Chris, a pretty soft schedule in the ACC.
All right, and you got LSU dropping 9 spots after that horrible second half. They're down to number 14. Are there question marks at the quarterback position?
At LSU?
Yeah.
I think you could make that case. I mean, last year, the season that Jaden Daniels put together in the second half of the year, it led you to think that that wasn't going to go by the wayside. But there's some whispers that maybe Garrett Nussmeier is the better quarterback of the two, at least playing from the pocket. Now, he doesn't have that dynamic element of running the football like Jaden Daniels does. And I think that's one of the reasons why Brian Kelly felt more comfortable putting Jaden Daniels out there is in his first year as head coach, he can erase a lot of the mistakes that you make. But the problem is now, after getting to the SEC championship game, the question is, how do you win an SEC championship? How do you win a national championship? If you don't have a guy that can sling it around, like some of the other great quarterbacks that we're seeing in college football right now, you're not going to have much of a shot. So I think that's the predicament that LSU is in as they try to pick up some of the pieces and some of the mistakes that they made in week one.
We pull up the top 10 once again in the AP poll, James, if we could, because there were a couple teams that fell out of the top 10. Obviously, LSU, as we just talked about, down to 14. Clemson all the way down to 25. But look at Ohio State.
Yeah.
They were the one team in the top 10 that won and dropped down from 3 to 5, a 23-3 win at Indiana to start the season, and the offense just did not look good. What did you take away from that game?
They did. Their offensive line play was average at best. And the bottom line is Ohio State as a 30.5-point favorite going into that game, as a road favorite, there's the expectations where they're going to blow out Indiana. So give Tom Allen, give his staff and his players a ton of credit for keeping that thing close for a period of time, but it also showcased, I think, a lot of the issues that Ohio State's going to face as that offensive line tries to gel and improve, but also the quarterback play. I mean, Kyle McCord was just okay, and I don't know if this is a byproduct of them allowing this quarterback competition to go so far into the training camp that it's impacted now the reps that he's taken out there, and still maybe battling a little bit with Devin Brown. But when you have the best player in college football in Marvin Harrison Jr., and you have another potential first-round pick in Emeka Egbuka at wide receiver, and they combine for only 5 receptions, that's alarming. That's a problem for your offense. So they've got to figure out a way of not only getting those guys more involved, catching the football, simple ways, screens, fly sweep passes, whatever the case is, they've got to figure out a way of getting those guys more opportunities to get the football. We
hit on Colorado, a team into the top 25 now at number 22. They are one of 6 Pac-12 teams in the top 25. The highest ranked is USC at number 6, and then Washington. Seems like a year ago now, Utah just humiliated Florida on Thursday night. This conference, is it the best top to bottom in college football?
I think it is. Look, right now they're undefeated. No one's lost in the Pac-12 so far that's played a game. USC's played 2, so you have to give them a ton of credit. I think they've got probably the best conference of quarterbacks. Every single one of these teams we're looking at right now. Caleb Williams obviously might be the first overall pick next year. Michael Penix will be a draft pick. Cam Rising will be a draft pick. Bo Nix could be a first-round pick. We could go on down that list, and every single one of those teams is led by a quarterback that can absolutely sling it around the college football level. Shedeur Sanders, who we talked about, over 500 yards passing. All these guys are capable of taking over games. And I think that's one of the biggest differences right now that you're seeing in the Pac-12 compared to everywhere else is there's no gimmies, there's a ton of parity, and in large part because of the quarterback play, which it really drives football in general, but in particular college football.
And you'll be at one of those Pac-12 games this week, Nebraska at Colorado. That is going to be a scene in Boulder as Deion has his home opener. That's Brady Quinn as we get our new AP Top 25. Taking a look once again at the top 10 with LSU and Clemson falling out, Ohio State falling from 3 to 5 because of a lackluster performance against Indiana. The top 2 remain the same. Florida State, the biggest mover in the top 10, up from number 8 to number 4 after beating LSU.